Hello everyone and welcome to the Sydneyist, a weekly conversation about the city we love. Our motto is much curiosity, a smidgen of cheek, and definitely no whinging. I'm Elizabeth Farrelly and we're broadcasting from Eastside Radio on 89.7 FM or streaming on eastsidefm.org. Tonight we're talking rivers, specifically the most urbanised, concreted, disrespected and polluted river in Sydney, indeed in Australia, and what has been done to revive it. We're talking the Cooks River, and I have here in the studio with me two very wonderful guests, Dr. Andrew Thomas, Executive Officer of the Cooks River Alliance, and Jason Lecuyer, I think that's how you pronounce it, very beautiful French name, both from the Cooks River Alliance. Andrew and Jason, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Look, you will have seen, but not everybody will have seen, the wonderful little doco called Bad River by Beau Miles. I think it's worth a watch on YouTube to set the scene. I'm going to just read the very brief little blurb that accompanies this on YouTube because it gives you a kind of feel. The Cooks River, he says, is Australia's sickest urban river, and it's located in the glamorous and famously pretty city of Sydney. This makes sense, given it's also Australia's largest hard-surface, drainified, leaky-sewered city. In my little red kayak, this is Beau Miles talking, I decided to trace all 23 kilometres of the Cooks River, inspired to do so after paddling my boyhood river over 4 days in the name of backyard adventuring. Finding it not only challenging but shocking in terms of its ill health, I've since shifted from wanting to see the wildest and most pristine places on earth to the most degraded and sick. This is a journey of ill health, sadness and hope, putting a test to the local saying, and this is my favourite bit, if you fall in, you'll dissolve. Beau Miles crawls through tunnels under train lines and at one point wades waist deep in plastic rubbish. A big bloody barge of sadness, he calls it. So, Andrew, tell us, if you would, what is the Cooks River Alliance and how did it come about?
Okay, so the Cooks River Alliance is an alliance between the four major councils within the Cooks River Alliance catchment, which is just a fancy way of saying when it rains, the water flows into the river and they've got their LGAs in there. So that's Inner West, Bayside, Canterbury Bankstown and Stratfield Council. And Sydney Water joined us about 4 years ago as well. One of the things I really need to just get out is that none of those organisations need to form this alliance. They're doing it because they consider it to be the right thing to do.
Yes.
So that's really important for people to know. There's no legislation or any requirement that they do this. And they've been doing it since 2011.
I'm just going to assume that you think there should be some legislation around this.
Well, I think it doesn't need to be. Well, there used to be legislation for catchment management authorities, and that was repealed back in, I think it must be, I'm not sure when, but they were dissolved around 2013, potentially earlier. And they didn't work, in my personal view, anyway, because they just added to the myriad of state and local government authorities that are supposed to manage that river. And, of course, it's just so fragmented that really everyone just ends up blaming each other. So the alliance was formed. And I think if we legislated that sort of thing, so there's also the Parramatta River Catchment Group and the Georges River Keeper, and there's others.
Which do similar things.
Yeah, do similar things, but
coalition.
It's only because those councils and those other, Sydney Water and others decide that they're going to do it.
Yes.
And if you legislated it, it would just mean that it would require not just those groups, but also some state government departments to take some responsibility and work together on behalf of our urban rivers.
So I was reading that the Cooks River Strategy was launched in 1998. Is that right? Don't know.
Oh, okay. Well, it depends on which one you mean.
Oh, okay. So there's been many.
There's been a few, and
maybe that was the first one.
Yeah,
was it?
And a lot of them have been written and lost,
ignored.
Not ignored. I would more likely say lost. So we found
that's worse.
Yeah, I found one that was done in 2008. Another one that was done in the early 2000s because of the Olympics was part of.
So who does them? Is this the state government?
Depends.
Or?
Sometimes
it depends.
Yeah, this is the problem. We don't have any legislation in New South Wales that requires us to do it.
So nobody kind of takes responsibility, essentially.
No.
Yes.
So you've got two issues. The legislation is not clear, it's not specific, and you have multiple organisations that you could potentially be responsible.
Yes. So I want to read you just another little bit, which appeared on my LinkedIn when I was actually putting a little ad for this show up, and a young man called James Forbes, who's a student, said, "I live alongside the river near Campsie. While there's been some progress made on naturalisation, and this is what he thinks, there hasn't been any progress in years. Signs are broken, faded and bedraggled. Plantings of native gardens are overgrown and neglected, and so on, infested with weeds." And I was told, he offered to clean up, and he was told to butt out. He says, Sydney Water appears singularly disinterested, and there appears to be no coordination between LGAs. Okay. I imagine this feels a bit like a critique, but part of it is probably because it's just a big, slow process.
Well,
is
it's
that right?
extraordinarily expensive. You've got to remember that
and expensive.
Yeah, it's expensive, and it takes a long time to address the problems that we've created. I mean, one of the ironic things, apart from all the development and the fact that it's one of the first rivers to be colonised, if not the first one, it was certainly one of the first. Okay. And it's had all sorts of industries and other things. But also, I think it was 1930s or 40s, I think maybe 40s, where they had this ironically named the Cooks River Improvement Act. And that basically meant, you know what, here's a really nice looking river, let's cover it in cement. So the top half of it,
that's what improvement meant in those days.
Yeah, it's just ironic. And look, to undo that damage is not just about... it's a lot of money. They've spent a lot of money wrecking it, like huge amounts of money, and we've got to reverse that. But it also takes time. It's not something. The other issues, of course, is that the development in the past has been what would now be considered unacceptable. Yeah. But you have development that comes right up against the river that you wouldn't do these days.
Yes.
You just wouldn't do it for a range of reasons. But you can't move those houses or commercial entities that easily.
Yeah, agreed. All right. So let's talk a bit about the history. I don't know if maybe this is a question for you, Jason. How did this river become so thoroughly disrespected? Is there a kind of story behind that?
There are a lot of stories, and it's kind of like death by a thousand cuts. But before I mention that, actually, I want to say to James, if James listens to this, actually, get in touch, because it sounds like you're onto something.
I think he'd probably like to help.
Yeah. Well, we'd love the help, actually.
Do you have volunteers?
We do, and there's a very healthy community. Lots of groups who are dedicated to every single day. There's at least one group doing something. Yeah, mud crabs clean up along the banks, and the mullets.
I've heard about mud crabs. Everybody thinks they're fantastic.
Everyone loves them. Yeah, shout out to the mud crabs. And the mullets, they clean the actual water. So there are a lot of groups. There are a lot of people doing things. But he's right. The signs are degraded. It definitely needs some love, and we can go into it in a moment, but we got some money to do that.
Yeah. If you want to reach out to us, you just Google Cooks River Alliance, and then go onto our website, and there's a general email, info@cooksriver.org.
Yeah.
It's easy.
It's a good website, actually. Yes.
Yeah, but to your question about the history, so I'm didn't grow up in Australia, so I've just learned many of these things myself, and I'm not Indigenous. So, but from what I know, there's actually a fantastic book. Paul Irish put out a really good book called Aboriginal History Along the Cooks River in 2017. And that was with a lot of consultation with Aboriginal land councils and community members. It's on our website, and I believe it's available through the State Library. So there's some really interesting history there. It was I think about 10,000 years ago. They've dated Indigenous occupation to about 10,000 years.
On the river in particular?
On the river, yeah. With a fireplace. They found a hearth at Tempe. Tempe House, which is now completely enshrouded by Walleye Creek.
That's right.
Housing.
Yeah, it's a bit terrifying, isn't it?
Yeah, but the place is still there. It's heritage listed, much to developers' chagrin, possibly.
The hearth is still there, do you mean? Or that
site is, and Tempe House. Yeah.
And you can actually see it? Or
I think a lot of the culturally significant sites along the river have been intentionally kind of... misidentified or disidentified. There's some paintings as well, and a rock outcropping in Earlwood. So occupation has gone back at least 10,000 years. And so colonization, as Andrew mentioned, is it was one of the first rivers to be colonized. I think James Cook described it as a fine stream as they sailed past at first. But
presumably it's him after whom the river is named.
Yeah,
it is, for better or worse.
Yes.
It is. So they obviously they set up at what's now Port Botany at first, and then they moved on to Port Jackson. But he did make a note that he was impressed with the Cooks River.
It wouldn't be now.
I don't think he would now. No, but it was. I think the colonization happened quite quick, and it's a long history. But basically, people were forcibly removed, and sometimes changing environmental conditions around the river. There was a belief then, sometimes now as well, that tidal areas, mud flats and things are unhealthy, inherently unhealthy, not realizing that estuaries and tidal zones have deep, ecological functions, really important, which we're now learning. When you turn them into concrete, there's all kinds of unintended consequences.
Is there a way of characterising the difference between indigenous approaches to the river and, if you like, white or colonial approaches? I mean, they sound very different.
Yeah, look, it's an interesting question. I think it comes down to the basic concept, and I'm not an Indigenous person, but this is what I've listened and learned about, is that you've got the Aboriginal philosophies that are quite ancient. You've got caring for country, people and place. And one of the biggest difference that I've come to understand, knowing my own culture, is that Indigenous people or philosophies tend to recognise that human beings and environment are not separate. But up until recently, economic textbooks would treat the environment like an externality. When you think about it, it's kind of really stupid. It's not even kind of stupid. It's like extraordinarily really stupid.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, the background that I come from, which is science, there's the Population Wellbeing Laboratory, for example, in Wollongong, or what's called the Power Lab, and they've got reams of research that demonstrate that the Aboriginal philosophies are actually accurate.
Yes.
So it's more nuanced than saying, Anglo culture versus Indigenous culture. It's more a case of, we went down a bad path for a while.
200 years of stupid.
200 years of stupid. I mean, Los Angeles did the same thing. The river there was cemented. It was a fad.
Well, yes, and that's true everywhere, isn't it? But it fascinates me that, for example, it is so fashionable to concrete the river, as you say, and so much of the river is concrete, not just on its banks, but on the bottom as well. Yeah. And of course, one of the things that does is sluice rainwater out to sea. Yeah. So a recent study by Arup suggested that Sydney was well down the list in terms of sponge city stuff, keeping water where it falls. And this is one of the reasons, right? So it just seems kind of dumb, and I think it's interesting that we...
It is quite dumb.
Yeah.
They were well intentioned at the time. The idea was to get the water out as fast as possible so we didn't flood.
That's what it does.
And it does that, but sometimes when it's really bad, the water flows much faster. So sure, the waters don't hang around as long, but if they do get to a certain point, they're moving so fast that they do a lot of damage.
Yes.
So it's not a great idea. And there are solutions out there. And that's one of the things,
And in fact, letting it soak into the ground is
a good thing.
Yeah, and there are solutions. We're just not doing them.
No. I heard actually when Jan Gell was in Sydney, whenever that was, late last year, at UTS, he said something that struck me, and I haven't seen the river since, in the same way since. He said that cities, and Sydney falls prey to this, were often planned, traffic planners planned as if they were plumbers, as if they were,
That is exactly how they think.
Yeah, yes. And I think that it's not a coincidence that the channelization of urban rivers happened at the same time as monstrosities like Parramatta Road, because it was
speed and efficiency. That's right.
And then things become
jobs.
Yeah. And then the ecosystems. It works both ways for the urban river. The ecosystems die because they're channelized and there's no nutrients. And then a place like Parramatta River, what businesses can survive there because there's everything's just flushed through.
Yes. Which is interesting, isn't it? Because the businesses help kill it as well. We'll come back to that in a minute. We're going to have a little music break.
the pines. Wash my hands, wash my sins, let me shiver in your ruthless wind. Take me down, take me in, oh, you crooked river.
That was Island Jewel with a song called Crooked River from an album, 2023 album called Get Behind the Wheel. Island Jewel is an American singer-songwriter from Boise, Idaho. One of many places I'd like to go. I'm here in the Alan Slate studio in the basement of Eastside Radio at 89.7 FM. I'm Elizabeth Farrelly, and I'm speaking with Dr. Andrew Thomas and Jason Lequier from the Cooks River Alliance. Andrew and Jason, this is for either of you probably, but let's talk about, we've been talking about all of the, I guess, the problems of the river, the concrete and the pollution and the, destruction of the banks and so on. Let's talk about some positive stuff, some of the projects that you've been doing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so from a technical perspective in terms of, management of the river itself, we've got the Coastal Management Program, which is actually a state government program that's funded at a ratio of 2 to 1. So they give us $2 and we add another $1 through the Alliance.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, it's actually, got to give them credit. It's
yes.
the Coastal Management Program, and it's
so that's just for the kind of tidal part.
Yeah, it's just for the tidal part. That's because of the legislation, but the methodology they're using is quite good.
Yeah.
But sadly, because of the legislation, it only deals with the lower end of the river. And so there's a lot of stuff going on the top that flows down, that can't be fixed.
The water does move, doesn't it?
Yeah, it moves down.
Yeah,
so sadly, any improvements made are still damaged by anything that's happening upstream.
Yes.
To address that problem...
Are people still polluting the river?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, often they don't even know they're doing it. So one of the ways
we're talking about industry and stuff, or just like humans.
Humans generally, industry, sure. We had an incident. I won't mention the company's name, but they were fined, and we actually received $150,000 of that fine for the Cooks River through the EPA. So the state government is changing. They are getting a lot better. There's still a ways to go, but they're good. But to fix that problem of the Coastal Management Program, is the state government gave us an extra funding to do a master plan for the whole of the river. So it'll incorporate the CMP, but also move up. And there are a range of important reasons for that.
Sort of as we speak.
Well, the funding is due to come out at the end of the month.
Yes.
To address that shortcoming of the Coastal Management Program. There's also,
and will that cover kind of everything from like water pollution to planting to
everything.
Yeah.
So it won't pay for everything. What it'll do is enable us to coordinate projects that are already identified in other plans, and also enable them to be articulated in a way that they won't get lost, and that local governments, stakeholders, and even the public can see what's going on
even
by just
the public.
simply
Good heavens.
So we'll be able to taking something from
I like that.
studying Los Angeles, we're going to do an interactive map so you can actually see. We were
talking last week actually on the show about an idea of radical openness, and I'm thinking, oh yes, we could do some of that.
It's a really good idea.
It is a good idea when there's public interest involved.
Because it stops us public people, us bureaucrats from making stupid mistakes and then making them so long that they actually become serious mistakes.
Well, and it stops, it prevents the situation where people like James are looking at this place that he really wants to see improve, and he feels disempowered.
Feels locked out.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. And that's so many of us in Sydney feel locked out of just about everything that kind of matters that's collective, So it's, I think it would be a great shift. So particular question, is it possible, I imagine this river as an actual river and not as a canal, which I was shocked. I stupidly possibly stood for election a couple of years ago in Strathfield, and I remember campaigning down at the river and going, oh yes, this could be fantastic. Imagine, but what a lot of concrete. Can we get rid of the concrete? Can we jackhammer it up?
What's that example, Jason, you from Korea, South Korea?
Yeah,
that's wonderful.
Of course,
they took the highway away.
Yeah, I mean, that's an extreme
they
example.
Had a highway built over a river, and then, oh no, we've changed our minds. Bad idea.
Yeah.
Lose the highway.
So when comparing the Cooks River, it's like, well,
this is easy.
A little bit of concrete, but it does turn out to be really expensive. What is it? Tens of thousands of dollars per square meter.
It's really expensive, but really, we always talk about the cost of something, but never the opportunity cost. costs.
Yes.
And we well know from the science, it's well known, even, and you can, like I said, the Population Wellbeing Lab knows this, and anybody who reads the research, that there are huge amounts of benefits in human health, physical and mental health,
yes,
that can actually reduce the burden on our health system.
Yes.
And every day that we don't fix the river is every day we lose money,
yes,
in that regard.
Absolutely.
And, you know, when you spread the cost over time and do the job slowly, which you need to do anyway, it's not that big a deal. It's not. I mean, it looks like a lot of money, but it's not.
Yeah.
Not comparatively.
Well, sorry. And speaking about money,
yep,
we have, this is another funding pool that we've received, $10 million actually from the federal government.
$10 million sounds better.
$10 million to address things like the concrete channelization.
Splendid.
And there are several sites that are part of that we're looking at, particularly on that side of the catchment. So we're looking at places around Punchbowl, even Cox's Creek,
great.
Yeah, so,
and Strathfield.
So Parry Park, and this is a really interesting one because this is another thing that people tend to accept and don't realise. But a lot of those, you know, Lakemba and other suburbs further up the stream, they are one of the worst rating suburbs in terms of tree cover and urban heat.
Yes.
And one of the bulk of that funding is going into Perry Park so that we can not only address the river issues, but we create some naturalised space like a wetland and some other things. So those
and
people
the
who
cooling
live,
effects that you get from that is significant.
So the people who live there, I mean, can enjoy something that some others closer to the coast take for granted.
Yes.
And it's just really nice to see that the federal government's willing to, you know, address that situation. They don't have to.
That's great.
So it's good that they're doing it.
All right, so let's talk a bit. I want to come back in a minute to the question of human health because that's really interesting. But let's talk about animals. The mullet are interesting, aren't they? And you've just finished this Warragul Festival, yes, which is a native mullet. And thousands of them swim, am I right, upstream? It sounds a bit like salmon. So is this I have to ask, is this a spawning thing?
It is.
Yes.
Yeah.
So where do they go?
I've heard
and how far do they get? Because it looks like...
Well, they can't go past Punchbowl Road. Because they run out of water.
Yeah. So they go up to Punchbowl.
And that's where they spawn? Or,
well, I'm not sure.
Or we don't know?
I've been told, so I'm not a environmental scientist, but I've been told that this is a pre-spawn migration, so they come into estuaries to feed.
Oh, okay.
Which is kind of a mixed thing, that they're coming into the cooks to feed, but they come in to feed and kind of fatten up and kind of socialize, actually, because they're quite social. They swim in big schools, and then they go out back to the coast, and they'll go as far as
And do people fish them? I mean, do we eat them?
Yes, actually.
Do we eat them?
Well,
should you eat them? And should you eat them from the river? I suppose.
No. I mean, the common wisdom is no. Department of Fisheries would say no. The Gamay Rangers, who are an Aboriginal ranger group based in La Perouse, they have cultural fishing rights. But I think they have, and actually there's a fishing hall, community fishing hall on this Saturday at Kaima, which is really interesting, doing some kind of traditional fishing practices. But they have ways of knowing where to fish and where not to. Yes. But we tell people not to. I mean, you're not supposed to.
You don't actually dissolve in the water, but you don't eat the fish.
No, those days have gone. Stop putting the hydrogen peroxide in there.
Just very quickly, the relationship between human health and river health, how does that work? Is that just about eating fish, or is that...
Oh, no, that's way more than that. Yeah, look, this may come as a big surprise, but it turns out if you build urban development that's all concrete and jams everyone in with traffic and everything, it makes us sick. I know it's a big surprise. And it turns... And the research is... Here's a simple example. One of the many research papers that I've read... We seem to be
very slow learners about this, don't we?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I mean, we apparently, if you put trees in at schools, it makes them cooler. It's called shade.
And it makes the children happier.
Yeah. I mean, who would have thought? But that was a study done by Western Sydney that was taken so seriously it made the ABC national news. And it's like, really? Have we really forgotten this so much? You know, it's crazy. But look, the reality, there is a direct correlation. For example, there was a study done, a simple one, at a hospital. Patients who look at another building and patients that look at a park. Yeah. And it measured it, and the people who looked at a park recovered faster.
I have to say, Florence Nightingale discovered that in the Crimean War. But look, we are, of course, as usual, running out of time, and this is a great conversation. But... look, I just would like to ask, the Wanganui River in New Zealand has been given the rights of a person. There are other instances of trying to do radical things to improve the fate, if you like, and the condition of rivers. What, if you could change one thing for the Cooks River, what would it be?
I'll go first if you like.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would develop a catchment management act or something similar that requires alliances like these to be formed so that the different departments and councils work together rather than trying to...
And they're obliged to put funding like this, a levy or something.
That's all we would need. That would be a big step forward.
Yes, that would be huge.
There are so many things I would do, but I think in this...
You can have 3 if you want.
Can I? Just how overly unnecessarily complex the management of a 23-kilometre river is.
Yeah, it's not very big, is it?
No. I mean, the catchment is quite a bit bigger, hundreds of square kilometres, but I would simplify that. I think it's become so big, and maybe this is back to legislation, or maybe it's something that I've been thinking about and talking about lately. It's just storytelling.
Yes.
Retelling the story of the Cooks River, so it's not this putrid drain, and people still talk about it in that way, even though it's improved quite a bit.
Yes.
So I don't know what it is, but I think empowering people along the river to be able to determine its story and its fate rather than these complex agreements between state agencies.
All right, we have 30 seconds just to paint a very quick picture of what the future of this river will be. Imagine it in 30 years. What will it look like and feel like?
Oh, okay. So you'll have a lot of the drainage areas, the cement areas, will be fixed mostly by Sydney Water's replacement program.
Yep,
go Sydney Water, but also other alliance members. So you'll see more greenery. You'll be able to have better access, and it won't be as cementy.
Kayaking, fishing, all forms of recreation. It will look like a river. It'll be lush and green, and will respect First Nations cultural
people will
connections.
Be picnicking happily on the banks
the way they used to, not that long ago.
Yes.
Can I just say one thing?
Yes.
Really appreciate the Cooks River Valley Association and Wooleye Creek and other community groups. Without them, we wouldn't be here.
Yeah. Volunteers are fantastic. We love volunteers. That's it, folks.